According to the Stanford psychologist BJ Fogg, design beats willpower. Design beats willpower. The truth is that willpower, there's a lot of research on this, is like a muscle, and it gets taxed fast. The more decisions you have to make in a given day, the quicker your willpower depletes, and your willpower all comes from a single source. So for example, if you wake up and you don't yet know what you're going to do in the morning, so for example, you want to go work out, but you haven't yet decided what you're going to do, then you got to start making all sorts of complex decisions. Where do I work out? Do I go to the gym? Am I going to go for a run? Am I going to work out my legs, my arms? All of those decisions burn out your willpower. And your willpower gets fried by the end of the day. And then ultimately, when your willpower is fried, you end up making very short-term, very low-level decisions. Usually they're high consumptive. You seek high consumption, high dopamine. For example, you're consuming crap media, you're consuming junk food. When your willpower is low, you consume high, and those high-level consumptions ultimately lead to long-term detriments. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about the single most effective way to overcome this willpower problem. So again, it goes back to design beats willpower. Sean Achor, the Harvard lecturer on positive psychology, has a concept he calls the 20-second rule. And basically what the idea of the 20-second rule is, if something takes 20 seconds for you to do, that's often enough friction for you not to do it. So for example, he wanted to start the habit of playing guitar. Like he thought, I want to get really good at guitar. We all know that our brains can change. Our brains are very plastic, very flexible, and you can develop new habits and you can develop a new brain. And so he got really excited about that, and he said, I want to get good at guitar. I want to build the habit of playing guitar, and I want that to become new levels in my brain. So he basically was going to set the goal of playing guitar for 21 days in a row, and he only ended up doing it for 4 days before he fell off. The problem was he was relying on willpower. He thought that willpower would be able to get him there, but ultimately, after a few days of trying, he fell back on what was the path of least resistance, which was his habits and his environment. Your habits and your environment are ultimately what you're going to fall back to when your willpower is fried. And so willpower ultimately loses to environment and habits. Habits and environment kill willpower any of the day of the week, and habits are very much trained and triggered by your environment. So one of the things that Sean Achor did to fix this is he ended up taking his guitar out of its regular spot, which was in the closet, and he put it right in the center of his room, in his living room where he played guitar. By changing that design, by changing that default. You want to change your defaults because your defaults, how you've set up your environment, ultimately lead you to default behavior. Just as an example on that, if you walk into your kitchen and if you changed the location of where the silverware was, you put it in a different drawer. For a while, you'd walk to the old drawer because that was the default option. So anyways, you can easily change your behavior by just shifting the default. But that's what he did. He put his guitar right in the middle of his room, and then it became very easy to just pick it up because it was right in front of him. That's one of the things that James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, is in order to make a new habit, you've got to make it really easy. And in fact, if you want to get rid of a bad habit, you ultimately just want to make it hard to access. You want to apply the 20-second rule to bad habits as well. So one of the things that Sean Achor did when it came to TV, because he was an avid TV watcher and it was a bad habit of his, is he took the batteries out of his remote and he put the remote somewhere in some drawer so that it would take at least 20 seconds to go get it. So for a while, his habit was to go sit on the couch after a hard day of work, and he realized, he didn't have his remote sitting there very conveniently waiting on the desk. It would take him 20 seconds to go get it. And so instead, he redesigned the environment. He put a book there instead because he wanted to read a book. Or he had his guitar right there. Those then became the most easy default behaviors to go to instead of picking up the remote. And so once he changed his environment and he made the default to just easily pick up the guitar, he was able to play the guitar for 21 days straight. And you can apply this to your life as well. I mean, ultimately, think about it. The reason you get distracted so easily is because you've made the default to be distracted. Your cell phone is right next to your bed when you wake up. And so you pick it up, and it's so easy to open up all your apps and ultimately open them up and get distracted. If you wanted to break your bad habits, ultimately what you want to do is you want to make it harder to do them, and you want to make it easier to do the behaviors you want. And so you want to create friction points. Because the point is that human beings, we don't like friction. Any form of friction stops us from doing the behavior we want. So for example, you probably don't floss your teeth very much, even though you want to. My guess is that anyone watching this video, they probably would like to floss their teeth, but probably most of us don't. And the reason is because it takes too much energy. Seriously, to just pull the little box out of the drawer, pull the string, cut it, and then floss. But if you remove that friction by just doing that the night before, and you had a piece of floss sitting literally right next to your toothbrush, and it was just sitting there, you would have removed the friction. And that's one of the things that BJ Fogg has found in habit design, is you ultimately want to make the behavior so easy you can't not do it. One of the other aspects of all of this is you want to remove what psychologists call decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is the idea that the more options you have and the more choices you make, the more it burns out your willpower. So you want to remove having to make decisions. One way to do that, again, is by just making it easy. For example, laying out the floss. You've made it so easy you don't even have to make a choice. You just pick it up and go. When it comes to, for example, exercising in the morning, all you have to do is lay out the gym clothes the night before, lay out your water bottle, lay it all out so that you don't even have to think about it. You've actually made the decision the night before so that when you wake up, it's already there. You've made the choice the night before, you've laid out the environment. You don't have to wake up to your alarm clock and then think to yourself, what am I going to do right now? That's the easiest way to burn out your willpower, is to be in a situation where you now have to make the decision what to do. You want to remove decision fatigue. I love the quote from Michael Jordan. He said, once I made a decision, I never thought about it again. That's the easiest way to do it. You just make the situation easy so that you can automatically do what you want to do. You've already made the choice. You've designed the environment so it's easy, and that makes it so much better. So when it comes to creating positive habits, you ultimately need to change the default, just like Sean Achor did. Instead of having the remote control on the couch, he made that 20 seconds away. He made it hard. There was some form of friction to going and getting the remote control. He put a book there instead, and he put the guitar right next to his couch, so that when he was done with work, he'd go sit on the couch. And then that's another concept called habit stacking. So like, for example, you know you're gonna brush your teeth in the morning. That's probably a habit you've got. You can easily attach another habit to it, which would be flossing, by changing the default, putting floss right next to your toothbrush. That's what Sean did. His habit was, after work, he was tired, so he'd go and sit on his couch. That was already an established habit. Then he just changed the default around that habit. Instead of having the remote control there, he had the book there and the guitar there. And so he could then stack on the habit of playing the guitar with sitting on the couch. As soon as he sat on the couch, oh, there's the guitar. Plays it for 10, 15 minutes. Then it becomes so easy to ingrain the new habit because you've changed the default. You've made it simple. You've made it easy. Just by having his guitar in the closet, that 20 seconds of friction of getting up, getting in the closet was enough for him not to be able to develop the habit. So when it comes to bad food, if you just change the default, remove it from your environment and make easy food. You know, again, James Clear discusses this in Atomic Habits, but the research on this subject has been available for 15, 20 years. Sean Achor wrote about it in his book 10 years ago. Put the healthy things right in front of you. Put the bowl of fruit, the apples, on your counter rather than in the fridge. If they're just in the fridge, you're probably not going to do it. That's enough friction for you to burn out your willpower and not do it. But if you've just got it right in front of you, so ultimately you just want to make it so easy to do the behaviors you want, and you want to make it as hard as possible to not perform the behaviors you don't want. Remove all the junk apps off your phone. Maybe even put blockers on those websites or on those apps for various periods of time. Create rules so that only during a certain period of time are you going to check your email or check social media or do certain things like that. And then create systems, create an environment so that it's hard to actually go against those rules. If you can create 20 seconds of friction for the behavior you don't want, seriously, it's all you need is 20 seconds of friction for the behavior you don't want, chances are you won't do it. You'll just default to the easiest behavior possible. And you can design your environment, design your defaults so that the easiest behavior is ultimately the one you want to do. And as you accumulate small wins, you're going to build confidence. And as you build confidence, you're going to actually want to do the right behavior more and more. And then you'll start upgrading your environment even more. You'll start entirely removing things that you know are just bad for you. You'll stop being attracted to things you used to like, things that were ultimately bad for you. You'll stop being attracted to certain people, certain behaviors, certain habits. And then when you look at your current self and your current environment and your current lifestyle and your current results, and you compare it to who you were before, you'll be blown away by how different of a person you are versus the person you used to be. Then you'll be able to project forward on the person you want to be and think about who is my future self? Who's the person I want to be? Then you can start designing your environment, start designing your lifestyle, start designing your friends, start designing your situation so that becoming your desired future self is super easy. This is kind of the way of design approach, environment design, where you're creating an environment that's like a stream pulling you towards your future self, rather than being in a river where you're walking literally upstream. That's the willpower approach. In psychology, there's two types of motivation. Either there's push or there's pull. Push motivation means you have to literally push yourself to do it. It's something you're not intrinsically excited about. There's some form of friction, either internal or external, and so you got to push yourself really hard to do it. Whereas pull motivation means that the situation was made easy, you really want to do it, and so you're ultimately being pulled forward by it. And so you ultimately want to design your goals, your environment, your life, so that you've got pull motivation. It's already so easy that everything's been set up. You don't have to exert so much willpower. Instead, you've designed the defaults and you've ultimately created the optimal habits so that you can just do what you want to do without burning out all of your willpower. You've already made the decision in advance, so you don't have to make all these decisions here and now. Seriously, making decisions is costly. One final thought on removing decision fatigue, and that's a concept called Who Not How. This is a book that Dan Sullivan and I wrote, and this is a key concept if you're wanting to be a high performer, if you're wanting to be in flow a lot more, is offloading a lot of decisions that you used to make onto a who. I mean, you could do it onto technology as well. You could automate a lot of your habits, like let technology take care of it. Just like, for example, I don't actually wash my clothes. I stick them in a clothes washer. Like, that's a who for me. I don't actually do that behavior, but there's a lot of behaviors you probably do that are costing you a lot of thought. That if you were to invest in a who and save yourself that time, more importantly than saving time, you'd be saving yourself the decisions. So just as one example, last year I actually went on to 300 podcasts when I was promoting this book, Personality Isn't Permanent. And originally I was going to be the one to schedule all those podcasts and things like that, but instead I hired a who. I hired someone for a very good deal, like they were a very capable person. But for me, and this is one of the reasons why people don't invest in who's, they think they can't afford it. Here's the problem with that philosophy though. You can't afford not to, because by hiring that who, they were able then to do all the scheduling for me. All I had to do was open my email on the day of podcasts, click the link, and show up. I didn't have to make the 5,000 micro decisions, emailing back and forth, deciding when we would do it, getting all the links. That's a lot of decision making, and decision making is very taxing on your energy. It's very costly. And if you can get other people to make a lot of the decisions for you in your life, the micro decisions, you ultimately set the target, you set the goal. But if you can get other people to make a lot of the decisions that are involved, you free yourself up so much. You don't have to have decision fatigue, and ultimately you can be in a flow state, focusing on the few things that matter most. So part of changing defaults is ultimately getting other who's in place so that you don't have to even think about it anymore. Again, once I made a decision, I never had to think about it again. By getting a single who, I never had to think about scheduling my emails again. I've also got a who for answering my emails. There's so many things you can delegate or outsource so that you don't have to burn out your willpower, your decision fatigue. You've removed so many decisions so that you can actually place your energy and your thoughts on bigger picture things. And you can be in a flow state in the key areas of your life, such as creativity or being with your family. This is how you can ultimately accomplish 10 times more, but while working less, while being enormously more recovered. You can recover because you don't have to constantly be the one doing all the how. And you don't have to make all those decisions. Instead, you've designed an environment, you've created defaults, you've offloaded a lot of decisions, and you've then made the default to ultimately be in a flow state and to be where you want to be. I'm Dr. Benjamin Hardy. Hope that helps. Hope that allows you to ultimately design your environment, your habits, so that doing the thing you want to do is by design, and it's so easy versus trying to just exert willpower. Check out the next video. I think it's right over here. Check out the next video and helping you become your desired future self. Have a great day.